Today, I'm going to explain Reps, a sci-fi thriller movie. The movie begins with a helicopter carrying cargo to Bio9 Industries' experimental research facility on Puerto Rico Island. Next, we see a man named William, a biomedical research scientist working at Bio9 Industries. He was waiting for the helicopter, and soon it landed with the cargo. The employees quickly took the cargo into the experiment lab, and William followed with his team. Meanwhile, an employee named Ed, after hearing the announcement, rushed toward the lab as well. When the cargo was opened, it revealed the dead body of a soldier, something everyone had been waiting for. Following William's command, the experiment began. Ed examined the body's cortex and other aspects before signaling William to proceed. That's when we see a robot placed in the lab. William explained the experiment to everyone, saying they were about to transfer the biological brain of this deceased soldier into the synthetic brain of the robot. The process began as the soldier's brain was scanned and downloaded into a memory drive using a neural print machine. William then successfully transferred it into the robot. The robot activated, now carrying all of the soldier's memories. William addressed it by the soldier's name, but the robot seemed confused and asked William about its identity. William explained that he had died and now existed inside a synthetic body. Hearing this, the soldier panicked upon seeing his robotic form and started breaking things. Despite William's attempts to calm him down, the soldier refused to listen, forcing William to halt the experiment. Frustrated by the failure, William's boss became furious with him. However, William defended himself, saying that this was a sign of progress and that they would soon succeed in their project. After the conversation with his boss, William returned home, where his wife, Mona, and children were waiting for him. The family was about to leave for a trip. William had 3 kids, his son, Matt, his elder daughter, Sophia, and his youngest daughter, Zoe. Ed was also there, making it clear that he was a close friend of William. Sophia handed her pet fish to Ed, asking him to take care of it while they were away. Ed then asked William if his boss had fired him. At that moment, Mona overheard their conversation and asked about it. Ed explained what had happened in the lab. William reassured them that they were making progress because today, the subject had spoken. However, Mona raised a concern. If the soldier could talk, that meant he could feel. She questioned how long they would continue to experiment on the consciousness of the deceased. Mona, being a doctor, strongly opposed such experiments on humans. She questioned William, saying, "Will you bring people back to life just to make them suffer?" William, however, defended his work. He argued that countless soldiers and civilians lose their lives, and if they could bring them back, what was so wrong about it? "We're so close to achieving this breakthrough," he insisted. "But something is preventing the synthetic brain from fully awakening," Mona countered. "What keeps a human alive is their soul. That's what's stopping you." But William didn't believe in such things. He dismissed the idea, saying, "The soul and everything else you're talking about, it's just neurochemistry." Despite their disagreement, the family set out on their trip. The scene then shifts to nighttime, where heavy rain poured as they drove along the road, talking and laughing. Suddenly, a truck appeared in front of them. William quickly swerved the car, narrowly avoiding a collision. Just when it seemed they were safe, fate took a cruel turn. A tree fell on their car. A sharp branch pierced Mona's stomach, killing her instantly. Shocked and horrified, William lost control of the vehicle, and they plunged into a river. When William regained consciousness, he desperately tried to wake his wife and children, but it was too late. His entire family had died in the accident. Overcome with grief, he broke down in tears, devastated. But then, an idea struck him. Without wasting any time, he called Ed and asked him to bring some equipment. Ed arrived, confused, and asked why William had called him there. William didn't explain. He simply told Ed to follow him. When Ed saw the lifeless bodies of William's family, he was in shock. William had asked Ed to bring a neural print machine. Seeing this, Ed immediately realized what William intended to do. Terrified, Ed protested, "I can't do this." But William, desperate and determined, begged him until he agreed. Together, they used the neural machine to download the minds of all 4 family members into memory drives. They then returned to the research facility, where it was revealed that William planned to clone his family. However, Ed reminded him that cloning was banned by the government. "If anything goes wrong, I won't take responsibility," Ed warned. But William, desperate, pleaded, "Please help me. I'll give you whatever you want." Ed, knowing how to perform cloning, held the key to making William's plan a reality. Ed was the only one who could help William with cloning. He showed William the cloning pods and warned, "Cloning isn't an easy process. My previous clones had serious issues. Some had no eyes, others were missing organs." But William argued, "We cloned animals easily. Why would humans be any different?" Ed sighed. "There's a huge difference between cloning a rat and cloning a human. Even if I manage to create clones of your family, their minds will be completely blank. They won't have any memories. And if you're thinking about mind transfer, let me remind you, we haven't successfully done that yet." William, however, was determined. "We can do this. We won't make a single mistake. Nothing will go wrong." After some hesitation, Ed finally agreed. William then insisted, "We need to do this at my house. No one should find out." He also asked Ed to dispose of the dead bodies, admitting he couldn't do it himself. Ed took care of the bodies and brought all the necessary equipment to William's house. However, William noticed something shocking. Ed had brought only 3 cloning pods. "But I need 4, William protested. Ed explained, "These were the only 3 I could find. That means we have to let go of 1 family member." William was devastated. He couldn't choose who to leave behind. Unable to make a decision, he wrote down all 4 names on slips of paper and randomly picked one. The name that came up was Joey. The realization hit William hard, but he had no choice. Ed then connected the cloning pods to the DNA samples and started the cloning process. He instructed William, "You need to monitor the pods carefully, check the chemical levels frequently, and before anything else, set up a backup generator." But William had no generator. Ed warned, "If power is lost for more than 7 seconds, the clones will be ruined." William knew it was impossible to find a generator in the middle of the night, but he had to act fast. Thinking quickly, he grabbed his tools and rushed outside. By morning, William had gathered car batteries from every vehicle in the neighborhood. He and Ed then connected them to the pods, ensuring a steady power supply. Just as Ed was about to explain the next steps, Ed explained that the cloning process would take 17 days. Until then, William needed to erase their memories of the accident. But Ed raised a serious question. "What will you do if they ask about Joey?" William had already made up his mind. "I'll erase every memory of Joey from their minds. They won't even remember that he existed." Although this decision weighed heavily on him, he went through with it. Just then, there was a knock on the door. It was the police. William panicked. But when he opened the door, an officer simply asked, "There have been reports of stolen car batteries in the neighborhood. Do you know anything about it?" William, trying to stay calm, denied knowing anything. After a brief pause, the officer left. Days passed. At Ed's workplace, his boss grew suspicious. "Where is William? He hasn't shown up in days." Thinking quickly, Ed lied. "He has pneumonia. That's why he's been out." His boss wasn't convinced. "Tell him that if he doesn't finish this experiment soon, we'll have to shut the research down." Hearing this, Ed immediately called William. "If they shut us down, they'll come looking for the equipment, and those are worth more than $30 million. You need to come back to work." William had no choice. "You come to my house and monitor the pods while I handle things at the office." At the office, William faked his illness and managed to avoid suspicion. He wrapped up his work and rushed back home. Outside his house, he ran into Matt's schoolteacher. She was concerned about Matt's absence, but Ed had already covered for him, saying, "Matt has chickenpox. He won't be back for a while." Ed warned, "Even Mona's clinic has been closed for days. You need to make sure no one gets suspicious. Start coming up with excuses before people start asking too many questions." William took his advice. He sent text messages from his family's phones, giving fake reasons for their disappearance. Meanwhile, his team at the lab was working on fixing the robot. William, from home, was running multiple simulations to prepare for the next phase of the experiment. But every single one of them failed. If he didn't get the simulation right, the entire cloning process would be useless. Frustration was setting in. At work, Ed kept making excuses to cover for him. Days passed. Then finally, the day arrived. It was time to bring the clones out. Ed arrived at William's house, and what he saw shocked him. The clones were perfect. No defects, but William hesitated. "I can't take them out yet. I still haven't figured out the right simulation for the mind transfer." Ed was frustrated. "I told you from the beginning, mind transfer has never worked, but you refused to listen. Now we have no choice. We have to take them out," he warned. "As long as they're inside the pods, they continue to age. If you wait too long, your son will end up older than you." William came up with a risky plan. "We'll take them out but keep them unconscious. That'll buy me time to finalize the simulation." Ed was skeptical. "You only have 70 hours. That's the maximum they can stay unconscious. After that, you have to wake them up." Left with no other option, they carefully removed the clones from the pods and put them under sedation. Now, William had just 70 hours to make everything work. William thanked Ed before he left. After Ed was gone, William sat down and started reviewing all his past experiments, trying to figure out what was stopping him from succeeding. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't find the missing piece. Frustrated, he decided to shut everything down. He even made up his mind to terminate Mona's clone. Just as he was about to do it, his phone rang. It was his boss. His boss was checking in on the experiment, asking about his progress. While talking, William absent-mindedly placed his hand on Mona's clone, and something strange happened. The moment he touched her, her brain activity spiked. William noticed it immediately. That was it. That was the missing piece. Realizing his mistake, he quickly called Ed. "I figured it out," he said excitedly. The simulation was never wrong. The problem wasn't in the code, it was in the body. Ed looked confused. William explained, "We were trying to transfer a human mind into a synthetic body. But the mind doesn't recognize the synthetic body as its own. It panics and shuts down. The key isn't just transferring the mind. We have to convince it that it's still inside its own body. Ed finally understood. So we need to transfer the mind into the human clone, not the synthetic body? Exactly, William confirmed. We just need to trick the mind into believing this is its real body. Without wasting time, William began the process of transferring Mona's consciousness into her cloned body. But something went wrong. Mona didn't wake up. Her body started shaking violently. Ed panicked. This isn't working. Your idea failed. But before William could respond, Mona suddenly stopped shaking. Her eyes opened. She looked directly at William and spoke his name. She remembered him. Ed was stunned. It worked. It actually worked. But before Mona could fully regain consciousness, William sedated her again. We're not done yet, he said. First, I need to erase all the evidence. Then I have to transfer the minds of Sophia and Matt as well. After Ed left, William began cleaning up everything. He removed all traces of Joey, his toys, his photos, everything. It was a heartbreaking moment, not just for William, but for the audience too. Once everything was taken care of, William went to bed like usual and lay down next to his wife. The next morning, when he opened his eyes, Mona was gone. Panic set in. He rushed out of bed, frantically searching for her. Then, he heard something from the kitchen. To his surprise, Mona was there, making breakfast, just like she always did. Their two children, Matt and Sophia, were sitting at the table acting completely normal. They had no memory of what had happened. William, overwhelmed with relief, sat down and made pancakes for his family with his own hands. Just then, his phone rang. It was edited. We have a new donor, he said. The boss wants to see you. Before Ed could get angry, he urged William to hurry up and start the experiment. William rushed to the lab and initiated the procedure. But after running initial tests on the donor, he shook his head and said, "This subject isn't suitable for the experiment. We need to wait for another donor." Everyone agreed, but Ed knew something was off. From what he saw, the subject was perfectly viable. Confused, he asked William why he rejected the donor. William sighed and explained, "Even if we successfully transfer a mind, it won't work if the subject doesn't accept the robotic body. The human consciousness rejects it. So what's the point?" Ed frowned. "Then you need to find a solution. Otherwise, the boss will shut down this research." After Ed left, William sat deep in thought. Then, an idea struck him. Taking a portable memory transfer device, he locked himself in the bathroom. There, he placed the machine on his own head and began downloading a copy of his mind onto a memory drive. It was excruciating. Every nerve in his brain felt like it was on fire, but he pushed through the pain. Later, he called Ed and revealed his plan. "I'm going to transfer my own mind into the robot," he said. "Unlike the other subjects, I'll know what's happening. I'll be aware that I'm inside a robotic body. That way, I can control it." Ed was terrified. "William, this is crazy." "No," William reassured him. "I'll make sure everything goes perfectly. Tonight, I'll start building the algorithm." That evening, William returned home. Mona greeted him, but something was wrong. "I don't know why, but something feels off," she said. "I can't remember anything from yesterday. In fact, after our trip, everything is a blur." William forced a smile. "You're probably just feeling under the weather. Get some rest." Mona, still confused, nodded and went to bed. Once she was asleep, William got to work on his algorithm. As he organized the memory drives, the camera panned to show another drive beside his, Joey's drive. Suddenly, a scream shattered the silence. It was Sophia. William rushed to her room where she sat up in bed, shaking. "I had a nightmare," she whispered. "I saw Mom. She was dying, but it didn't feel like a dream. It felt real." William comforted her, assuring her it was just a bad dream. But as soon as she drifted back to sleep, he placed a device on her head. With a few clicks, he erased that memory from her mind. Just then, he heard footsteps. Turning around, he saw Mona standing in the doorway, staring at the machine connected to Sophia. Her voice was firm. "Tell me the truth, William." William had no choice. He took a deep breath and revealed everything. He told her about the car accident, how she, Sophia, and Matt had died, how he had cloned them and brought them back. Tears welled up in Mona's eyes, but instead of anger, there was gratitude. "You saved us. You brought our family back," she whispered, holding his hand. But William had left out one thing. He hadn't told her about Joey. The next day, William took his family on an outing. For a moment, everything felt normal. That night, they all sat down for dinner. Out of nowhere, Sophia asked, "Who's Joey?" William froze. "What did you say?" "Joey," Sophia repeated. "His name is on my clothes. Who is he?" Panic surged through William. "I don't know any Joey," he lied. But Mona wasn't convinced. Something was wrong. Before she could press further, the doorbell rang. William opened the door and found his boss standing there. They stepped aside to talk in private. His boss smirked. "You've done the impossible, William, but there's a problem. Those clones? They're company property." William's heart sank. "If word gets out about this, we'll have serious issues. So, I need you to hand them over. Your family, and the algorithm you used to create them." William pleaded. "No one has to know. I'll give you the algorithm. With this, your company will become the biggest in the world. Just let my family go." His boss laughed coldly. "You still think this is a biomedical company?" he said. "You really believe we're spending all this money just to revive soldiers and civilians? We only call it a biomedical company to keep the government off our backs." The truth hit William like a ton of bricks. There was something much bigger at play. His boss leaned in. "Give me the algorithm. Spend whatever time you have left with your family." With no choice, William agreed. He stepped inside to retrieve the algorithm. But William pretended to hand over the algorithm. But just as his boss reached for it, he quickly injected him with a sedative. However, his boss anticipated the move and dodged just in time. Before he could retaliate, William grabbed a heavy object and struck him on the head, knocking him unconscious. Without wasting a second, he rushed inside and threw the algorithm drive into the microwave, destroying it completely. Meanwhile, Mona was still pressing him about Joey. Finally, William took a deep breath and told her everything. "We had 3 children, Mona. Joey was our youngest daughter, but I didn't have an extra cloning pod, so I couldn't bring her back. That's why I erased her memories from all of you." Mona was stunned. "You can punish me however you want," William continued, "but first, we need to get out of here. This company has a much bigger plan behind this research, and they won't stop until they take you away." Realizing the danger, Mona didn't argue. Grabbing their children, they escaped through the back door. But they weren't unnoticed. The men who had arrived with William's boss spotted them fleeing and immediately entered the house, searching for their leader. When his boss finally regained consciousness, he saw the destroyed algorithm and furiously ordered his men to track them down. It wasn't difficult. William's family was still connected to the company's tracking system. As they drove, Mona noticed something was off. "How are they finding us so easily?" she asked. William's face was grim. "The clones," he explained. "The company implanted trackers inside them. That's how they're following us. Can we remove them?" William shook his head. "It's not easy. The trackers are deeply embedded. Then we need to go to your clinic," Mona interrupted. Understanding her plan, William immediately turned the car toward the clinic. Once there, Mona acted fast. Using a shock device, she sent an electric pulse through the children's bodies, deactivating their trackers. William did the same for Mona, cutting off the company's ability to trace them. Just as they finished, the pursuers arrived. But with the trackers offline, they couldn't pinpoint their exact location. Taking advantage of the confusion, William led his family out through a hidden exit. Their next stop was Ed's boat. The plan was to escape the city by sea. William told his family to stay in the car and wait while he searched for Ed. But before he could return, the boss's men found them. They surrounded the car and took Mona and the children captive, dragging them back to the research facility. William arrived just in time to see them being taken away. He clenched his fists. He was too late. At the research center, Mona was shocked to see Ed there. The boss had forcibly held Ed captive as well. Ed apologizes to Mona and explains that he had no choice but to tell her the truth when she found out about the equipment. Just then, William arrives. And to intimidate him, the boss shoots Ed and holds William's wife at gunpoint. William, trying to stay calm, tells him that killing his family won't get him anything. He reveals that he destroyed the algorithm by burning it, and only he can recreate it. If the boss wants the algorithm again, he must let William's family go. The boss agrees to his condition, and William begins the process of recreating the algorithm. However, William is only pretending to make the algorithm. In reality, he is transferring his extracted memories into a robot sitting in the lab. Once the transfer is complete, the robot activates, but unlike previous experiments, it doesn't self-destruct. Since William himself transferred his own memories, the robot's body accepts them. After that, William hands over the supposed algorithm to the boss. Just then, the robot arrives to rescue William's family. The boss's men fire at it, but the bullets have no effect. Instead, the robot starts eliminating the attackers. Amidst the chaos, William grabs his family and tries to escape, but before leaving, he pauses and makes a decision. He goes back inside alone, where the robot has nearly killed the boss. As the boss takes his last breaths, he warns William that even if he dies, the people above him will hunt William down. William, thinking quickly, offers him a choice. He can create his clone and bring him back to life, allowing him to live his life again as before. But in return, he must promise to abandon all illegal activities and use this technology for the benefit of people. Realizing his mistakes, the boss agrees but succumbs to his injuries before anything can be done. The robot then tells William to take his family and leave, assuring him that it will take care of everything. 17 days later, a clone is successfully created. We then see William and his family enjoying themselves at the beach. William brings his little daughter, Zoe, revealing that the clone was actually of her. Mona is overjoyed to see her again. Meanwhile, in Dubai, we see the boss, alive as per the promise William made. He now creates clones for wealthy clients in exchange for money. However, the real person in charge is no longer him, it's the robot. And with that, the movie concludes on a seemingly happy note. But one question remains. If William cloned his daughter and even his boss, why didn't he clone Ed? Ed was a good friend who had helped him a lot. I believe that since Ed was shot in the head, extracting his memories might have been impossible, which is why William didn't bring him back. But what do you think? Why didn't William create Ed's clone? Let me know in the comments, and if I find an answer that makes sense, I'll pin it. If you liked the movie, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.